in the country's electricity markets. Meanwhile, Russia, which supplied about half of the gas Ukraine used last year, cut supplies on June 16 in a row over pricing and in the wake of Moscow's annexation of Crimea.
Now his murder drew a crowd, and so has his funeral. Hundreds of people have lined up in Ferguson, Missouri to attend the funeral of the black teenager Michael Brown, who was shot by police. The 18-year-old, who was unarmed at the time of his killing on the 9th of August, after being stopped by a white police officer for walking in the middle of the street. His death actually sparked days of protests and violent clashes, but hostilities seem to have eased in recent days. Mr. Brown's father has called for calm ahead of his son's funeral, and that seems to be working out.
The funeral for Ferguson shooting victim Michael Brown is scheduled to hold today at the Friendly Temple Missionary Church in St. Louis, Missouri. The 18-year-old African-American was shot dead by white police officer Darren Wilson on August 9 while walking down a street in Ferguson, Missouri. The shooting sparked protests and more than a week of unrest in the St. Louis suburb. Although the funeral is arranged on a working day, many nearby residents said they will still try to attend.
I was just wanting to show support and a lot of empathy for what happened, and just want to let his parents and stuff know that everyone's behind that, and just want the truth to come out.
According to the church, about 5,000 people are expected to attend the funeral to pay their respects to the young man. In addition, 3 White House officials will attend the funeral on behalf of the Obama administration. During the Video Music Awards 2014, which took place yesterday, Brown wasn't far from the minds of the music world either. Rapper Common took to the stage asking for moments of silence in remembrance of his killing.
For the past 2 weeks, the eyes of the nation have been on Ferguson, Missouri. The people in Ferguson and St. Louis and communities across the country have used their voices to call for justice and change, to let everyone know that each and every one of our lives matters. Hip-hop has always been about truth and has been a powerful instrument of social change, from Melly Mel to Public Enemy to Kendrick Lamar. Hip-hop has always presented a voice for the revolution. I want us all to take a moment of silence for Mike Brown and for peace in this country and in the world. Yeah, give it up.
The slaying of the 18-year-old black youth by a white police officer, Darren Wilson, in the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson on August 9 has led to weeks of unrest and has drawn global attention to race relations in the United States.
For more on that incident, I'm now being joined live by the Voice of America's Alberto Pimienta, who is actually attending the burial of Michael Brown at Ferguson, Missouri. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Alberto. Now, knowing that you're present at the funeral, what can you tell us about what's happened so far? Has the turnout been as high as the church anticipated?
Well, there's clearly been a huge turnout here in St. Louis, Missouri. Many people had to stay outside because there just wasn't enough spots for the people to come in. They started coming as early as 6:30 in the morning local time, and then the funeral started at 10 a.m. But as I said, there's still many people that were not able to go inside the church. There were some overflow rooms that were prepared for those people that the church knew that they were not going to be able to make it in. They obviously expected thousands of people to be present. And we talked to some of them, and they told us that they were there in order to offer their support to the Brown family and also to give their final goodbyes to Mike Brown that was killed, as you guys mentioned, August 9th by police officer Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri. The church itself, where this is taking place, is only kilometers away from Ferguson, Missouri.
Now, can you tell us more about what's happening concerning the investigations into his death?
Well, we got to remind the audience that there's two investigations. There's a federal investigation and a local investigation. The local investigation at the moment, the grand jury is being presented evidence by the prosecutor, the San Luis County prosecutor. He's presenting the evidence to this grand jury that is conformed by 9 white members and 3 black members. And they'll analyze that evidence, and then they'll decide if they're going to press official formal charges to Darren Wilson. This, experts are saying, could take many weeks. It could be until October. Then we also have a federal investigation that it's also quite a lengthy process, that it's being done by the Department of Justice of the United States, and it's the FBI is also participating in this investigation. But both of these investigations are still going to take a little bit of time. But Ferguson, without a doubt, got here yesterday, and we were able to talk to a lot of the people in the community, and they really tell us that they want justice as soon as possible. But some of them, they also say that they want this process to be as first possible. A lot of them say they do not trust the local authorities. A lot of them do say they trust the federal authorities. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. When the grand jury is finished, a lot of this information is going to come out, and we're going to have more details about exactly what happened that day, August 9th, when Michael Brown was shot by Darren Wilson.
Alberto, thank you so much for joining us on The World Today. I know you need to go back into the church because the funeral event or procession is still going on right now. I've been speaking to the Voice of America's Alberto Pimienta, who is currently at Ferguson, Missouri, attending Michael Brown's funeral. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Now, can you guess what would cost the Afghanistan economy about $5 billion US? Well, it's none other than the presidential elections. Afghanistan's finance minister believes the country is now in a deadlock over the dispute. Now, in effect, salaries would have to be cut and government workers might need to be laid off if the crisis is not resolved by the end of the month. Unfortunately, foreign investment is at a standstill and government revenues have fallen sharply since the April vote. 2 contenders have claimed victory but have so far failed to reach a deal on a government of national unity. A full audit of the votes is still underway, and that's under United Nations scrutiny. Ashraf Ghani, who is leading in preliminary results, may most likely lose from conceding too much ground before the final result is known. His rival, Abdullah, has accused election officials of massive fraud, and many of his senior supporters want him to take a tougher line, believing that their candidate won the vote. When we come back on The World Today, we'll bring you an update on the Ebola virus. Please stay with us.
The world is an ever-changing global village. Hunger, conflict, and the quest to maintain established territories form the next frontier of discussions that determine the world we choose to live in. Every word, every discussion, every agreement or disagreement is crucial. Be part of the next frontier. Be part of Diplomatic Channel, only on Channels Television.
Welcome back. You're still watching The World Today on Channels Television. Now it's time to shift our attention to the African continent. Well, it seems as though the experimental drugs work for some, but not all, as a Liberian doctor has died despite taking an experimental anti-Ebola drug. The Liberian Information Minister confirmed that Abraham Bobor was one of 3 doctors in Liberia who had been given ZMapp and were showing signs of recovery. ZMapp has been credited with helping several patients recover, including 2 U.S. doctors. And more than 1,400 people have died from the Ebola virus this year in 4 West African countries. That's Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and unfortunately right here in Nigeria. We understand that the doctor in question took a turn for the worse and no further details were provided. But it's believed Dr. Bobor died in the capital, Monrovia. Unfortunately, the Democratic Republic of Congo has confirmed that an outbreak of Hemorrhagic fever